Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 4:10. Call to order. Was it?
2:10.
2:10. I tell you, I can't see with these lights.
There's a glare there, so.
Glare. Time is now 2:10. I call to order the meeting of the Orange County Sewer District #1 Advisory Committee for December 10th, 2024. A copy of the agenda for this meeting may be found on the county website under the tab for the legislature. Please silence your phones and electronic devices. And at this time, I ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Kelly, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Ema?
Here.
Pinelli?
Present.
Cheney?
Here.
Ellers? Hotel? And Tui.
Here.
4 present, 2 absent.
Okay. First up on the agenda, we have Richard B. Golden, County Attorney. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it. Joe Mahoney was at a previous meeting. I think hopefully he's on his way. Eric Denenga, Commissioner, Department of Public Works. Robert Gray, Commissioner EF&S. Anthony Griffin, I don't think he'll be here, but we do have Mary Beth Bianconi, partner of Delaware Engineering, DPC. And this meeting, the last meeting for the year, is for the design phase update for the Harriman wastewater treatment plant. And Mary Beth, would you like to come up, and Eric? Thank you.
And access copies to all.
Just one sheet. I didn't put too many trees. Today,
Back to back.
yes, back to back, trying to be efficient. So, do you want to start, Eric, or do you want me to jump in?
I mean, I can give a just quick introduction. I mean, Mary Beth's company has been diving right into it for the design. We've been having design meetings down to sewer plant. So our team they've got everybody involved down there that needs to have input into the preliminary design. And Mary Beth has been good with setting up I think it's quarterly meetings with the DFC.
Yes.
To the grants and to see where we are with, on their lists, the project list, and then eventually getting to a point which I think Mary Beth's going to talk about a little bit today. I know Kadai, who's here, had inquired about grants a little bit this week as well, seeing some grant notifications out there, which we usually forward over to Mary Beth, and trying to get to that point where, we have a project. I think as Mary Beth has been explaining for the last year and a half or so, we get to a point where we can then start applying for things. And but other than that, I don't know if you want to give a summary.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the sheet that I just handed out is pretty straightforward. The first portion is really just an update on where we are, regulatory and technical. So our very first big exercise out of the gate is to drive towards getting a speedies application for the 9NGD plant into the DEC. That also includes a request for variance from total dissolved solids and chlorides, an Army Corps of Engineers permit for work on the outfall, a general permit for construction stormwater discharges, because we're going to discharge more than an acre, and something called a notice of anticipated noncompliance, because we'll be taking unit processes at the wastewater treatment plant offline during construction, so we're required to submit that. We have had a schedule since we began this project a few months back of an application date in February, and we are on track for that. So that's important for folks to know. There's a little more on this as we go along. Work conducted since our September meeting. We've had a series of technical review project meetings with the county's technical working group, which is terrific. They're incredibly engaged and very, very helpful. We met in October, on October 15th, November 20th, and our next meeting is actually next week. This is a really quick summary of the design workshop meetings so far. We've talked about a lot of things, but this is just kind of the highlights. Filter technology, because we will have a phosphorus limit. We'll need filters at the plant. The plant water system, which is the non-potable water system that's used in the processing of the wastewater. The outfall will have an upgrade to it. The hydraulics are how the water leaves the treatment plant and goes to that outfall. We've had some discussion about power on site and the transformers capabilities. We've been working on preliminary equipment selection, which is a pretty big topic. There's a lot behind that one. Important to the Speedies permit is something called water treatment chemicals, WTCs. All of the chemicals that are used on site have to be evaluated by the state to make sure that they are safe for use for humans and the environment. And we've also begun some work on preliminary site layout and construction access. And this has to do with laydown areas and how we're working on the site. Because as folks know, those of you who took advantage a couple years ago of our site walk there, we're gonna cover a lot of this site with both construction equipment and new treatment units. And there's a lot of humans on the site. And we wanna make sure that we have safe conduct of construction, and we really have to think our way through the sequencing of the construction. So that's important. The land surveyor, that was the first RFP, and they're also the locate folks for the utilities, the various utilities, was the first RFP that we worked with the county to get out. They have been on site since October. They are actually wrapping up their work in the near future. And just because I think everybody finds this stuff interesting, in order to find all the things that are underneath the ground, we use something called ground penetrating radar, which actually allows us to see through the soil and find all of the good stuff. They started that work the week of Thanksgiving. So that is ongoing and is on track. It's on budget and it's on schedule. We needed to delineate the wetlands that are around the outfall that are associated with the Ramapo River. That work was conducted by our in-house biologist in September. It only took her a day in the field because it's a very limited area. She prepared, did all the field work and prepared her draft report for December. And we're now just compiling the information for the Army Corps of Engineers permit that will be submitted at the same time as the Speedies in February. We have an asbestos and lead survey that we need to do for existing structures that we will eventually be touching or demolishing. And this largely has to do with the headworks. So we have an RFP that's been issued. I believe responses were due last Friday, and I just haven't seen them. So that is in the works. And our last piece of the outside consultant work at the moment is the geotechnical work. And we have an RFP that's been drafted, and I think it's just going through its very final iteration so that that can get out on the street. I just want to commend the legal department has been really great to work with on getting all of these this documentation in place, getting contracts in place and working quickly, which is just vital to moving things along. So they have done a great job. We have been all along, one of the key documents here that will go with the Speedies is something called a basis of design report. That's taking that giant engineering report we had and making it a very specific technical document. That is, I was just looking at the draft of that yesterday. That is in really good shape. So that's sort of like technically, there's an army of people working on this project. There's probably a dozen people at the county who are contributing to this project, but we're really moving along as we expected and right on schedule. So it's good stuff. Regulatory status. We had requested from DEC that we do a pre-application meeting for the 9MGB Speedies. We've been working on getting a date nailed down for that for actually a little bit, and it's next Thursday, December 19th. The goal there is twofold. One is to, this will be an unusual Speedies permit application because we will be going from 6 to 9, but it's going to have that variance embedded in it. And we're building on the variance work that we've already done. So we want to make sure that we understand from DEC, how do they want the information presented? What level of detail? Do they want us to refer to prior documents? Do they want us to include those prior documents? You'll also recall we have a total solids minimization program that is in place and is working its way through. We want to understand from them how they want to see these things all related together, because in a perfect world, we'd like to submit an application that's as complete as possible. We don't anticipate that our first application will be deemed magically complete and processed just because it's a complex process, but we want to make sure we're meeting DEC's expectations. So that meeting is next week. And then the second piece of that meeting is to ask DEC to establish a technical working group to meet with us probably quarterly, if not more frequently than that. We've done this on a couple of other really large upgrade projects, and it's worked extremely well to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're all working together. Another little note from a regulatory status perspective, our current Speedies permit for our 6 MGD wastewater treatment plant expires in March of 2025. In the fall, the staff put together an application to renew that permit. It relied on much of the information that we have been doing. That permit was administratively continued under something called the State Administrative Procedures Act in September. So we have continuing permit coverage, no hiccups, no burps, no nothing. And that's it. That's good to have it continuing through the process. So now the most important part, we're sort of here to talk about today, which is financing this project. I listed on this page a number of different potential sources of both low-cost grants as well as the low-cost financing as well as grants. And I just kind of want to hit some of the highlights and then we can talk a little bit more about process. One of the primary ways that wastewater infrastructure is funded in New York State is through something called the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, or CWSRF. It's a federal grant and loan program that's administered here in New York State by the Environmental Facilities Corporation. Eric mentioned that we have a quarterly meeting with them to keep them up to date. I think we need to schedule our next meeting with them. We are already in the hopper there. We have a project listed for financing on what is called the annual list. So that opens the door for us to submit a financing application in federal fiscal year 2025, which began on October 1st.
What's the project and what's the amount?
The amount that's listed is $156 million, and it's for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade alone. So it doesn't include the collection system, which would be done as a separate phase.
But it includes the headworks?
It's the whole wastewater treatment plant upgrade.
Thank you.
Yep. So that project is listed. We are on the annual list, so we're qualified to submit an application for financing on May 30th, which is essentially tomorrow. It sounds like it's a really long time as we look out here at the weather and it's almost Christmas, but that is really soon. The requirements to submit a qualifying financing application, engineering report, we got that. Seeker is done. You recall we did a very large environmental impact statement. State Historic Preservation Office review is done. So the things that are not done. To the extent that the refinancing, the repayment of debt for this project will rely on intermunicipal agreements, and that is significant. And what is significant? Who knows? But if it is if it's not an inconsequential amount of debt repayment, the EFC expects you to have intermunicipal agreements that show that that revenue source will be coming in and that the term of that agreement extends at least as long as your term of borrowing. So that, in this case, is 30 years. So we've known about this for a while. The county legal, we've talked about this a couple of different times. It kind of needs to be done in conjunction with this project, but we will need to have updated intermunicipal agreements with our intermunicipal partners coming up fairly soon.
With the outside
So that's the
users.
That's, the Moodna or whatever you want to, right? Woodbury's.
How did district use it?
How's that been going? I think Joe's been working on that.
I'm not up to speed on that.
Yeah, we'd have to check with Joe.
We should just check in with him.
Okay.
I never know here to do that.
And then we need to adopt a bond resolution. So when we borrow money from the Environmental Facilities Corporation, what we're really in effect doing from a financial perspective is we're drafting a bond resolution that will be sold to the state of New York, to this Environmental Facilities Corporation, for you to receive their loan funds. That's essentially the operation that's going on. So we need to adopt a bond resolution. In order to adopt a bond resolution for the project, we have to conduct something called a County Law 5A proceeding. We kind of need to get going on this pretty quickly. I made a list of the people that, in my experience, are typically involved in these County Law 5A proceedings. And this doesn't include you nice people in the legislature, although it is your action to be taken. But from a staff perspective, usually county attorney's office is involved because it is a legal proceeding. In this case, it would be Eric's office because you guys are the ones who actually conduct the billing and do all of that work. We are involved because you need to know how much money you need for the project. And we do a lot of these proceedings as well. Many communities do use fiscal advisors. I don't know if the county in the past has used a fiscal advisor for this type of project, but they can be extremely helpful for a variety of reasons, including interfacing with bond counsel, who is the last kind of party who's generally involved in these kinds of processes. And then just so everybody understands what a 5A proceeding is, we've talked about this before. But basically, you guys have an established county sewer district when under section 268 of the county law, if you want to, they call it increase or improve, right? So you're gonna change it, you're gonna spend money on it. You have to go through a process where you create something called a map plan report. That's done by a licensed engineer. As you know, we have lots of engineering reports. I remember we talked about this at one point, and as much as my partner Brock gets very frustrated, we'll create a map plan report specific for this purpose. It'll be a subset of our other, nothing new you haven't seen, but it'll be specific to this proceeding. It will include the information that's required. Once you have received that map plan report, what's it gonna have in it? It's gonna have what is the project that's being conducted, who is affected by the project, what is the cost of the project, and then what is the cost to the typical user is the words in the legislative language. So we had to figure out, that's also part of this sort of financing and IMAs is who's the typical user. That will all be included in that map plan report. Once the legislature has received that document, then the legislature, because you act on behalf of the county sewer district, you would schedule a public hearing. That document will be available to the public. The legislature conducts a public hearing to receive comment regarding the project, its necessity or lack of, its costs, impacts, all of those kinds of things. At the conclusion of the hearing, after the hearing is closed, then the county legislature makes a finding of public benefit. So in that finding, you are evaluating whether or not the project has a public benefit and whether or not the cost is appropriate to that public benefit, that you're making a statement that says everybody who's benefited is being assessed in some way, everybody who's not is not, those types of things, just for the public. If you are not part of the sewer system, if you're not in the county district and you're not part of one of the IMAs, you do not pay for this project. You're out in Port Jervis, this is not your project, you're not paying for it. After that occurs, this project will need to be referred to the Office of the State Comptroller for their review and approval. And what they are looking for is procedurally, do we follow the process? Do we do everything that we needed to do to meet the law? And also, is this, they're kind of a backstop to make sure that the project is in the public's interest. After that has all occurred, then the county can adopt a bond resolution. So that is all what is required to submit a CWSRF application.
When, with a project this size, and you said that you're not sure if they've used financial advisors in the past or if they
The
have.
county has.
Yeah, I think that'll be a discussion with myself, Joe and Rick, and probably Terry Gallagher, in finance, to see what their thoughts are on that, what's needed. We do have consultants that work as bond counsel, and they may also play other roles in finance, fiscal advisory, that type of thing. So
Okay, and
we'll talk to them about that.
okay, because that's highlighted bold with ASAP.
It is ASAP, because if you think about that process I just outlined, we can create, we have the map plan report kind of outlined, because we know this is part of our scope, we know we need to do this. We have to plug in numbers, that's part we haven't done yet. So we have to plug in numbers. Once you guys, as you know, we have our committee here, we have fiscal services, we have the legislature. Now, the good news is we did seeker, so we don't have to do that, right? But we have to get through that process. You'll have to schedule your hearing. There's hearing notice requirements and things. So you would likely, you know, the legislature meets the first week of the month, you may schedule, just like we did with seeker, schedule the hearing towards the third or fourth week of any given month, conduct the hearing, then, you know, unless something is presented at the hearing that gives you reason to change something, you may adopt that, that finding of public benefit at, let's say, another legislature meeting. So now 3 months have gone by, right, essentially. Because we have the one where you schedule the hearing and then the hearing, and then you have the one where you adopt, and then we have to submit to the Office of State Comptroller, and they take a little bit of time to go through their process. The other thing is, you know, that everybody who has to do one of these proceedings, there's a similar proceeding for towns called a 202B proceeding. They're all submitting to the Office of the State Comptroller to make this May 30th deadline, all at the same time, because. Right, so we do need to get moving on this. Really the important parts of this, yes, fiscal advisor and bond counsel, but really it's that we need to, I know I have not been engaged in the, with legal and those folks, they may be working on parallel track, but we really need to get engaged in the cost and all that side of this pretty quickly, so we can get through that. I just want to go through these other grant programs really quickly, and then maybe we can answer questions or whatever. So the next one that's on here is the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, also called WIA. Yes, we love our acronyms. This is a grant. This is state funds. It is, could be a fair amount of money here. I did not put on here, but we'll talk about this bill. This could be a fair amount of money, up to $25 million in grant. These applications are generally due in the summer. They have not announced when WIA applications will be due in 2025, but the criteria to submit a WIA application is the same criteria as the CWSRF application. So once you've done everything that you need to do for CWSRF, you can also submit what's called a WIA application. It's all the same stuff. Past, sometimes they've had them do on the same day. That won't be the case this year, but Water Infrastructure Improvement Act is something definitely would be submitted for. Its goal, so many of the grant programs in New York State are aimed at those among us who have the least to pay for their infrastructure bills. WIA is one that does consider your ability to pay, but more importantly, considers sort of the environmental side of things and the need to get a project accomplished. So that's one for which the county could be very competitive. Water Quality Improvement Program, WQIP. This is a DEC run program that has to do with water quality. You all may remember that we had a lot of discussions here about the Ramapo River watershed and it being something called a 303D listed impaired water body. That is one of the chief criteria for WQIP program funding, is if you are doing something to improve water quality in an impaired water body. So definitely be submitting for that. It can be upwards of $10 million in grant funds. We haven't seen a lot of, we have seen some $10 million commitments. That again is usually a summer application. It requires an engineering report, which obviously you have. The one footnote I will put with WQIP, and this will be an interesting conversation now with DEC, it's a DEC run program for water quality. As we've said many times, we're submitting a variance for water quality standards. But we are doing many things to improve the water quality in Ramapo. So I'm not sure how DEC will view that. There's a new one, and then I need to loop back around to something called Bill. But there's a new one out on the street that some of you may have seen very recently. This is an Empire State Development County Infrastructure Grant Program. This is brand new, hot off the presses. The governor just announced it maybe 2 weeks ago. It's $50 million statewide, which maybe sounds like a lot of money, but remember our project is probably a $160 million project. This is just one project. So it offers grants anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. Anything helps. I took this little statement right out of the program guidance. It says small to moderate scale priority infrastructure projects identified by counties that directly or indirectly support economic development, support the creation of housing, and they're using 10 units of housing as a metric, contributes to placemaking or encourages tourism. It's a rolling application up until April 1st of 2025 or until all of the funds are committed and expended. only one application per county, and there is a webinar next week on the 17th, which we will attend and report on. My concern about this is our project is very, very large, and this is really focused, I think, on smaller projects, because I think they're looking to have a lot of impact. I know in some of our other more rural counties, they're identifying projects that kind of really neatly fit the box to try to be competitive for this money. All money is good, so we'll see what happens on the 17th and see what the criteria are. Traditionally, ESD grant funds are not very difficult to apply for. Sort of stained cocktail napkin kind of applications. The last one that I want to talk to that I can't believe I forgot to put on here, but that I did, is the bipartisan infrastructure law, or bill. We've talked about this in the past. This was 2021 COVID legislation that injected literally billions of dollars into everything from airports to ports to water systems and sewer systems and tribal nations and a whole bunch of other things. 2020 federal fiscal year 2025, which started on October 1st, is the last year that bill will exist unless Congress somehow in its infinite wisdom in the next Congress reauthorizes it or something like it. Bill is tied again back to CWSRF. So that's the good news. You're already there. You're already in the hopper on that one. Where CWSRF funds are competitive, you are scored based on your environmental impact, human health, and ability to pay. Bill is similar, but it adds some additional criteria. So those include things like disadvantaged communities. So which the county sewer district does have some disadvantaged community areas. Environmental justice areas, which are areas where opportunity for people may have been impacted by the presence of land uses that constrained economic vitality. So think landfills, industrial uses, those kinds of things. We also have some of those. And a host of others. There's also some climate concerns in there regarding the change, climate change and the impact of climate change on persons. Climate change, unfortunately, is regressive. It usually hurts those among us who can afford it the least, the most. So those are the bill criteria right now to achieve bill funding. I think the current line is right around 50 or 54 points. We have more points than that, but that does not necessarily mean that we get bill funding. There are other factors that come into play. We are competitive for bill funding, and bill funding would be a 50% grant, 50% zero interest loan, up to a cap, which off the top of my head, I can't remember, maybe 25 million, but then we can add other funding on top of it. So we could take that money and add another 25 million from WIA, or another
Was
10.
that 50%, no interest, you said? The loan?
No interest, yeah, half of it's grant and half of it's zero interest.
And what's the cap on it?
I can't remember off the top of my head, and I didn't bring my build cheat sheet with me. I can get back to you on that.
Just send it to the group.
Yep. And again, right now, that program is, it's expiring. So this is the last opportunity to get in the game.
When's the deadline?
It's May 30th.
Oh, May
It's all the
30th.
same, it's all baked in. It's one of the reasons I forgot to put it on here, is
Okay.
because that's one of the nice things, right? It's all the same criteria, all the same requirements. You just have to get it done.
Is there a requirement for spending the bill money
In terms of if the
By
states
date,
don't.
you mean by certain
by a
dates?
certain date?
So I think this is, you may have seen that the current administration is rushing to get a lot of things under contract. Like you may have heard, there was an announcement about some of the Chips and Science Act stuff that Senator Schumer just recently announced. The sense is because Bill is running through the SRF program, the SRF program's been around since the 80s, that this is sort of dollars in and it will just continue to wash its way through the system. We have a number of bill projects that received bill funding in the first year in 2021. We haven't seen a dime yet. We're still working our way through the
Haven't
process.
Are the projects
seen it
done
done.
or?
I haven't seen it done yet.
No,
Are the projects done?
they're in process, these projects, as you know, how long have we been working on this project? They take a long time, yeah. So, there is no, like, you must spend it by some day that I'm
Okay.
aware of. It's committing it. It has to be committed in fiscal year of 2025.
And what is commit?
So it would mean that we would submit our application. If we achieve, a bill status, they actually send you a notification saying you've achieved this status. Now, you have to get to a point where you sign an agreement for financing. That's the commitment. So
The agreement with them for financing.
for the
State
EFC, yes, the State Revolving Fund for financing, right?
Chairman Manili, did you have?
Actually, I wanted to go back to the financial, are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes.
To the fiscal advisor. Joe? Now I can ask this question. Have we used in the past a fiscal advisor along with bond counsel that you're aware
Not that I'm aware of, no.
of? Okay. And does bond counsel, for the most part, would it suffice a project of this size? And have you started to talk about it with Rick?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't here for that part of the conversation for this fiscal advisor.
Okay.
What was
Well,
it?
we
What
were
was the-
talking about, do you have the agenda?
Yeah, he wrote it in the agenda.
Here, I have an
Here.
extra one right here.
There should be one.
Here,
Join us.
We talked about in an effort to get moving with bond counsel, who are the players, which were the county attorney, county DPW, engineering consulting, a possible fiscal advisor, and the bond counsel. Now, we obviously use bond counsel
All the time. So what I will say is that the state, we've had folks use fiscal advisors on really, really large projects when there's a lot to coordinate or there's a lot to consider with respect to the operation of bonding, those kinds of things. Some bond counsels also act as fiscal advisors, which I think was the prior question that was asked. If not every project has a fiscal advisor. I will say where you may see them very frequently are things like in school capital construction, where your school district may be doing, say, $100 million worth of work. And it's important for them, they're going to put the bonds out on a draw basis rather than for the entire project. So what a fiscal advisor will do is a fiscal advisor will work with a construction manager to say, okay, how much funding do you need to do the first phase of construction? You need 60 million. When is the best time to go out to seek those bonds, those kinds of things? That's what a lot of times you see fiscal advisors. Sometimes we see, so that's not gonna happen in this case because the whole project's gonna be funded all at one time. That's the way the state program works. But sometimes we do see folks use fiscal advisors to help guide, fiscal policy relative to a capital project. Sometimes they can be helpful in looking at internal finances. You may not need that. I listed it here because the state lists it as one of the potential people who may be involved. And I didn't know, because I've not done a bonded project with you guys, if you use a fiscal advisor. You don't have to. You may
No,
not.
there
It
is,
sounds like it's more the bond council that just working with Kerry Gallagher for a while.
Well, and when you mentioned
Cherish.
Kerry Gallagher,
Yeah.
that kind of brought it into.
Yeah, I mean, they have their own in-house expertise as well with Kerry and her staff, but they also have bond counsel that's on the phone quite often with them,
Well,
advising on
we've used
certain
them,
things.
because I know, Betsy, you've been using them for various different resources when we have to do certain things.
So they may very well cover that.
But we'll
But I
we'll
think
definitely
we
check
need
with
that
Kerry.
answer.
Yeah.
Because if in fact we are not going to go that way, we would have to go out to seek like an RFP or something.
Yeah, we have to.
Ah,
solicit
okay.
Yeah,
services.
that's
Alright.
another.
That's time, yeah.
That's another time.
Yeah.
And you may not need it. I don't know how you guys work. So,
You know what? Kadali has one question I'd like to let him ask, because he has a lot of experience too with this.
It's not the question. I wanted to respond to some of the issues of financial advisors. We have used financial advisors on every project, especially on the big ones. And they come in very handy in a project like this, where EFC is going to look for an amortization schedule on the bonds, and on affordability, because EFC is very cognizant on what the ratepayers are going to have to increase, and by when they're gonna have to increase, when you're gonna have to increase the ratepayers' charges in order to pay off the bond. So for example, you have a 30-year bond, which includes interest, principal, and operating the plant. They want to see, okay, your current annual O&M charge is about $500 per unit. Based on this scenario, when is it going to be $550? When is it going to be $600? When is it going to be $700? And they look at it for a 30-year run to see each time you need to increase the O&M rate in order to generate enough revenue to pay off. Because they're the bankers. They want to see that this business, which is called, because this is a benefit bond, this is not an open bond for the entire county. It's based on a utility. The utility needs to generate enough revenue for you to be able to pay off this bond. And there's a lot of variables. For example, there's one line here that talks about intermunicipal agreements with out-of-district users, but the in-district users have needs and have submitted a list of housing projects that they want, and we have to divide the 3 million gallons. How much of the 3 million is going to be provided to in-district property owners? How many of the 3 million is going to be to out-of-district? Are the out-of-district communities interested to buy more capacity in their Moodna agreement? Some of them still have available capacity, they don't need any more. Some of them would need more capacity. These are things that there's a lot of fluctuation here. Having a fiscal advisor is going to be extremely helpful. Now, if the county has a fiscal advisor for any other bond project that has gone through the RFP process, you don't need to do a new RFP for that. You could do a modification to the agreement and just take that fiscal advisor. But I strongly recommend you have a fiscal advisor on a project which is based on generating the revenue from the sewer plant that you're building.
Thank you.
Under our Article 5A procedure, and without offering an opinion one way or another as to fiscal advisor, the amortization and the amount to be paid off during the bonds would have to be submitted as part of the
It does,
application.
right, correct.
And what you do, you go in, you're like, okay, this is assuming that we have no grants, or assuming we have a grant, this will be the payout schedule on the typical property, the typical 1 or 2 family property.
And that's actually covered in our, so we actually have that in our scope of work. Because we've done this for Saratoga County, Dutchess County, Rockland, this is something that we do in-house. We have people who do this in-house. So we don't do fiscal advisor. Fiscal advisor is like a person who's certified to do certain things, like relative to finance. We don't have that, but we have people who do all the math. We can run amortization, debt schedules, every kind of combination and permutation of this person's paying 2 cents and that person's paying 4. So that's actually part of our scope of work to do when we work, the 5A process, working with county, the county is part of our scope of work to do that. So we have all that stuff and we know what EFC is looking for.
EFC has requested from us a business plan. A business plan, like a banker. Business plan, you're building a business which is called the water pipeline to New York City. You have a customer base of 6,000 to 7,000 customers. You have a growth rate in the customer base, a couple of hundred more families each year. How much are going to be paying? When are you going to be increasing? Like a full business plan when you go for a business loan.
Well, we're gonna look into all of that, so,
And
I'm not
what
arguing,
Eric
just giving
said,
you the
just
information on
Sooner
thank you.
versus later.
I want to add one point on agreements with outside municipalities, because the legislature would have to make a decision. How much of the 3 million is dedicated for in the district? How much is needed for in the district based on the questionnaire that Mary Beth has sent out to all the in-district municipalities asking, what are your needs? And after that, how much is the available capacity that could be sold to Moodna communities? And what are the needs of the Moodna communities?
I know that just from other conversations and other groups, that, Joe, we've been talking about intermunicipal agreements with, Moodna now for some time, and, that's all gonna be determined.
But you may not have capacity to sell them. If
Well,
Mary Beth has to tell you if the 3 million covers the in-district submissions and needs based on what each community submitted to Mary Beth. If there is excess, you could sell to the Moody communities. So the revenues generated from in-district, you don't need agreements for that. That is based on in-district communities that are paying the $500 per year to be connected to the sewer. It's only for access capacity that you need out-of-district contracts in order to sell them.
Well, we're, we're looking into it, and the thing is that they've been a long time district partner. So, you know, I don't think that we're at that point where we're gonna start divvying up and figuring out.
We're confident.
But for
of our-
historical
We are aware
purposes,
of it, and
to be
that's
clear,
gonna be a
for-
big part of the municipal
for
agreement.
the historical purposes, when the county issued a bond in 2006 to build 2 million additional gallons capacity to the Harriman plant, going from 4 to 6, only the town of Woodbury signed an intermunicipal agreement to buy more capacity. Everybody else refused. Only Woodbury said, I want to buy some extra capacity. None of the others. So this is not like a hot commodity for out-of-district communities running to buy sewer capacity. They haven't done it since 2006 to date.
And part of the evaluation is, as you said, it's an evaluation of the industry needs.
Exactly, exactly.
Right. Some don't need as much, some need it, we're gonna figure that all out.
Yep.
So, but I think that we just wanna move along too, but thank you though, because I know that you're very experienced in this.
Just
Yes,
want to
sir.
add, we're certainly going to, we have an obligation to take care of the in-district users first, and we're very well aware of that. And we are in touch with the community users as well, to become aware of what their needs are. So we are.
Thank you.
I did send a text message to Carrie Gallagher while I was sitting here. She's already said, okay. I just asked her to watch this video, so she'll get a full understanding of what.
Oh, great, thank you.
I would just say, Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. I'll jump in real quick. I was watching my office. I remember what Gedalia just mentioned to me. Woodbury was the only one who answered. We put that loud and clear to people if they wanted to join in there, but we'll move forward with it. All these issues, I think, are gonna be working. I'm not worried about any of them. The things I am concerned about, and I talked to Eric Denega this morning about it, and first off, the fiscal person definitely has to be plugged in or even picked by Carrie Gallagher. We have the best finance person in the department in the state. And she's done a great job monitoring our stuff, and I don't want to have any nightmares or I don't want to worry about it, so I would let her run point on that. What I'm concerned about is Mary Beth. I want to make sure as soon as we are ready to go with this, we have everything ready to go out to bid type of thing. My guys in legal have everything they need to do with DPW. I would not want to be done with everything and then have a lull for 6 months that we're not ready to go out to bid. As far as the money goes and the estimates, and Katie knows this because Katie and I have been working together for decades, these bids always come up higher. We see, I deal with this every day, the shortage of supplies, the increase in labor has just made a lot of our estimates come out higher. So I'm preparing for that mentally. So I just want everybody to know this is going to cost a lot of money now, and we know it's going to probably cost more than what we think it's going to be. And the third thing is, and Gedalia and I talked about it a little bit, and so did Eric and I, that we definitely need to hit everything with a shotgun approach for grant money. Like you said, Mary Beth, the income levels are great. That should put us in some high categories for eligibility. So I'm pretty confident where we are, and I think, you know, this has been decades, so I definitely, Pete, I always thank you for this. This is not the sexiest committee to be chairman of, but it's very important. And, we have so many projects, residential and commercial, that are either stuck or in the pipeline waiting for this committee and the county and obviously all of us together to keep moving forward on it. So there's not a day that doesn't go by that we're not talking about sewer at this point. So those are the three things I'm concerned about. I'm very confident that we're gonna be fine with them, but I just want to be able to, that we're seamless. As soon as you give us a stack of plans ready to go, we're ready to have that bid out there so we don't have any more time that's wasted And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Executive. Appreciate that.
The immediate issue is the 5A and the bond resolution. Those are the two immediate issues,
Yeah.
because that's,
And Mary Beth is right on top of it.
We talked to, Rick Golden and I talked to our bond counsel earlier this morning, Hawkins Delwood or whatever.
Delfield.
Yeah, Delfield Wood, but Dan Birmingham. So we are keyed up. We just, as soon as you're ready, Mary Beth, we're ready to go. So I just, you guys know me, I wanna go, go, go. So, yeah, I'm happy that you have Kerry plugged into this too now, Eric.
Go, go, go.
Building trades are calling too. When are you guys putting that out to bid? Diorio just called. Merry Christmas.
They
By the
think
way,
it's-
when are you putting that? out?
Steve, I guarantee they think it's sexy.
Yeah.
They do.
if I may, Mayor Beth, the state also has a momentum fund for infrastructure for communities that have the pro-housing certification. And Curtis Joel has received the state certification for pro-housing, which makes you eligible for momentum funds.
Yes, so we've had a number of communities that have gone after Mid-Hudson Momentum. We're still trying to figure out, maybe you and I can talk offline. The applications require that you sort of have like this housing pro forma to submit with them. So, you know, the county doesn't have a housing pro forma, but there may be
The school district may
applicants
have.
who have.
Oh, the school
Housing,
district
you
may
know.
have. We have submitted one on behalf of the village for the water project. We could definitely work with you on that.
Yeah, yep.
And we're gonna send you certifications. Communities need a certification from DHCR in order to be a pro-housing certified community. We have that. We'll share that with you. That would open that door for you.
Okay, thank you, County Executive, appreciate you joining us.
Yes,
If you can stay, we're almost ready to wrap up, so.
all right.
Joe? you
No,
have-
I'm good.
Joe, just, one thing, like, we were just, talking about the intermunicipal agreements, and that's in the works now. We're talking with Movement now, we're doing some old business with them. And this is the new business with them.
Exactly.
So as the county exec said, it's all systems go, all hands on deck, I think you'd like to use, right? All hands on deck.
Yeah.
And let's get everything going and clicking at once. Does anybody else have anything, Legislator Amo or Legislator Cheney? Mary Beth, do you have anything else for us?
No, I was gonna say perhaps we could have a meeting, right, with Carrie and kind of get that process moving.
Good,
That'd be
great,
great.
excellent. Mr. Gray, anything?
So, thank you.
Vidalia, thank you for your input. Council, anything? All right, if not, take a motion to adjourn. Great meeting. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. And I think this was a very, very important meeting that we had. I asked Mary Beth to kind of come in and put a nice big bow on it before we all head out for the holidays, and you certainly did. I appreciate everything that everyone does for this moving forward. Thank you for joining us, County Executive.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Thank you very much.
Do you intend for us to be meeting on a monthly basis from here on out?
All right, we have a question before we go. Michael, we have one more question before we go. I think that what we're gonna do is we're gonna, I'm gonna say, are you gonna get much done between now and January? I think I would like to start the year out with monthly meetings to just see where
Sure.
all of this is going. It's
Sure.
new ground for us. It's
Each everyone
milestone.
a couple minutes, that's it, yeah, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
half hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to do that, and we don't want to lose any momentum.
Good job.
Okay.
I agree.
Everybody good?
Thank you, Peter, for.
Thank you.
Which is.
Well, I think that we're not on the other side.